Hello and welcome to today's video. Today we're going to be going over The Compound Effect by Darren Hardy. And this one has been recommended to me by so many of my friends, and for some reason I was resistant to it in the beginning. I think because maybe I didn't understand what it was really about. But as I started reading it, I realized this is probably one of the, if not the, most important principles to live your life by, and I am totally on board with it. This has absolutely changed the way that I look at not only just habits, not only just goal setting, not only just success, but almost every area of my life. And that's one of the great things about principles is you can take this principle of the compound effect or the compound, and you can transfer it and see it in other different areas of your life. And this is definitely one of the books that I will recommend from here on out to everyone, that they should definitely read it before you even watch this video, before you even watch this mind map. This is a book that you should definitely pick up by a great author, Darren Hardy. So a little bit about the book is that the subtext is jumpstart your income, your life, and your success. And I think jumpstart is so important because one of the things we're going to talk about is the hardest part of the entire compounding process, of the compound effect in and of itself, is actually the start. But before I get into too much of a spoiler, let me quickly introduce Darren Hardy. You might be wondering, who is the author of this book, as I was when I first started reading it. So he's a visionary force. He's the visionary force behind Success magazine. I mean, you might have heard of that before. It's a pretty big magazine in the personal development space for sure. He's the publisher, and he's also one of the founding editors. And Success magazine and their different properties, including their online properties, I read reaches over 2 million people on a monthly basis, which if you're into online marketing whatsoever, you know how many people 2 million people really is. It's a crazy amount of people to be reaching on a monthly basis, especially if you compound that over the years and years of how much impact this magazine really has had on the lives of millions and millions of people. So they're a leader in the success industry for over 2 decades. And Darren Hardy, because of that, was also a leader in the success industry for over 2 decades. He's had interviews and has had access to the most successful people on the planet. Some of the people include Richard Branson, Warren Buffett, Steve Jobs, Jeff Bezos, some people that you might know, and many, many more people that are of a similar caliber to those people. So all in all, Darren Hardy, a very amazing man, and this book definitely reflects that. It's a very amazing book, very amazing concept, and a very amazing principle that we're going to go over here in this mind map today. Now, we'll get into a little bit more about the compound effect, and the quote that I pulled from the book that I think best describes the compound effect goes like this. Darren says that this book is about success and what it really takes to earn it. It's time someone told it to you straight. You've been bamboozled for too long. What a great word. There is no magic bullet, secret formula, or quick fix. You don't make $200,000 a year spending 2 hours a day on the internet. Lose 30 pounds in a week. Rub 20 years off your face with a cream. Fix your love life with a pill, or find lasting success with any other scheme that is too good to be true. And amen to that. How many schemes are there out there like this today, and especially on the internet? It would be great if you could buy your success, fame, self-esteem, good relationships, health, and well-being in a nicely clamshelled package at your local Walmart. But unfortunately, that's not how it works. And like he said in the introduction there, he's really telling it to us straight, right? Like so many people aren't. They're painting with this rose-colored brush and trying to get us to wear these rose-colored glasses about what success really takes. And this book is all about what success really takes without that rose-colored brush and those rose-colored glasses. So that quote continues on, and it says, what this book is about, with all unnecessary noise, fat, and fluff removed, is what really matters, what really works, what half-dozen basics, when focused on and mastered, constitute the operating system that can take you to any goal you desire and help you live the life that you were meant to live. This book contains those half-dozen fundamentals. They comprise the operating system called the compound effect. And if you've been if you've been watching this channel at all over the past few weeks and few months, you'll know how big a fan I am of systems thinking and mental models. And the compound effect is essentially that. It's going to be a mental model that you can install in your brain and again, put it over all different facets of your life and see how it's working. So the formula for the compound effect is actually small, smart choices plus consistency plus time equals a radical difference. And as we talked about already, this is true in every single aspect of your life. It is true, and you can find the compound effect and its formula in health, mental, emotional, relationships, business and career, social life, finances, and many other different avenues of your life. You're going to see that the compound effect really is at work. So this book really is no nonsense. As he says in the beginning, he's telling it to us straight. The compound effect has been spoken about before in other books for sure. You can see the compound effect, even if it's not called the compound effect, you can see it in many other different writings and other great works. But Darren Hardy has put together the true great work on it, and I truly believe that. There are many colorful examples to show you how to think about the compound effect, and we'll get into a few of those here in the mind map, but there's many more in the book, plus many how-to specifics that will help you get on your way. So it's a very how-to book. I really enjoy those types of books as well. And if you're watching this mind map, you likely do as well. Of course, I couldn't fit all of these, colorful examples and how-to specifics into the mind map, but I pulled out what I thought was the most important for you. And if you'd like to learn more, I definitely suggest, like I said in the beginning, you got to pick up this book. It's such an amazing book, and I am remiss that I didn't read it sooner while all of the people were recommending it to me. But I'm just that kind of a guy. If I get recommended it by a lot of people, I often think, it's already been read by a lot of people. I will move on to something a little bit more obscure for whatever reason. That's just part of my personality, is to seek out things that other people haven't found. So the first real big idea that we're going to pull out here of the compound effect is on compounding. And this really is just going to explain what compounding is, and we're going to give you a couple of examples, I should say. So the quote from the book goes like this: "The compound effect is the principle of reaping huge rewards from a series of small, smart choices." And this really is exactly the same as the formula that we talked about before, right? Small, smart choices, consistency plus time equals a radical difference. And that essentially is what the compound effect is. What's most interesting about this process to me is that even though the results are massive, the steps in the moment don't feel significant, right? So the things that you're doing don't feel very significant. They don't feel super difficult or etc. And they don't feel like they might add up to anything in particular. Whether you're using this strategy for improving your health, your relationships, your finances, or anything else for that matter, the changes are so subtle they're almost imperceptible. These small changes offer little or no immediate result. No big win. No obvious "I told you so" payoff. So why bother? And I think what he's trying to get at here is exactly what the people are selling you that are selling you these success secrets, or this nicely clamshelled package at the local Walmart, etc., right? What those people are trying to show you are a few immediate actions that are going to take you on this journey of this big immediate result and this big giant win and obvious "I told you so" payoff, right? That's what they're trying to sell you. And we've already talked about that so many times on the channel, how that's not really the truth. But the compound effect will get you there, but it's not going to give you anything in the short term, which is what we're so often craving, just to get out of the pain that we're currently in. So most people get tripped up by the simplicity of the compound effect. What they don't realize is that these small, seemingly insignificant steps, completed consistently over time, will create a radical difference. And again, that's really what we're talking about. Small, simple steps consistently over time. And it seems like, okay, there's going to be a lot less willpower needed to do these small, insignificant steps. But I would say no. I would say it's probably the same amount of willpower, but it's applying the willpower just in a different way. Your normal person would apply their willpower to this grand gesture that they're doing in the beginning of whatever process they're trying to start, right? If they're trying to lose weight, or if they're trying to, get their finances on track, people are much more likely to take a grand action in the beginning to get out of pain rather than take some small actions to slowly get themselves out of pain, but eventually lead up to a bigger and more dramatic effect. And that's essentially what the compound effect is. It's taking the willpower that you would normally use, and instead of using it all in one big giant action, what we're going to do is commit to seemingly insignificant steps, but spreading that willpower out over a longer period of time. And you'll see in some of these other points how effective that really can be when that willpower is spread out over a long period of time. And in fact, we're actually going to go right into a couple of different examples here. So the first one is the Magic Pennies. So the parable here that he's doing is essentially this. He's saying, would you rather have $3 million today or 1 penny doubled for every day for 31 days? Now, if you weren't reading the compound effect and I wasn't kind of burying the lead and showing you what the effect is going to be, a lot of people would choose the $3 million today, because 1 penny doubled every day for 31 days doesn't even seem like it will add up to very much. And you can see after 5 days, you're starting to feel kind of like a dummy, because after 5 days, the guy that chose 3 million or the girl that chose 3 million has 3 million still. And they might be able to spend all this money and etc. But you only have 16 cents. And you're starting to feel maybe a little bit like a dummy for choosing this one penny compounded every day for 31 days. So by day number 10, you're still feeling like a dummy. You know, you got 3 million, your friend has 3 million and you have $5.12. But that's when the power of compounding really kicks in, because by day 31, that guy has 3 million or that girl has 3 million and you have $10 million starting from one single penny. And that really is the compound effect when it comes to finances. Now, obviously, not very many people are going to give you a doubling every single day. That's not the kind of rates that you're going to get in the stock market. But it really does play out. You can see this is maybe a dramatization of how the stock market does actually pay out. You can choose to get small wins in the immediate, or you can choose to get large wins in the long term. And that's essentially what the compound effect is. Now, that's the compound effect as it pertains to finances. But what I thought was even more interesting was this parable that he gives about the 3 identical friends. Friend number 1 is going to stay exactly the same. Friend number 2 is going to get a big screen TV and start cooking rich meals that he sees on the Food Network. Now, this is something that a lot of us are choosing to do probably nowadays, for sure. The Food Network is a very enticing thing to watch, that's for sure. Now, friend number 3 starts walking a little. Let's say he's walking right after dinner with his wife, and he's eating just a little bit healthier during that last meal of the day. Maybe not very much, maybe like 125 calories or something like that. Now, after month number 1, what's happening? It's going to be the same thing as was happening with the pennies. I'll tell you that right now. Friend number 1 is obviously staying the same. Friend number 2 is enjoying his TV and food, but has no real noticeable health changes, only 1 month. In fact, he's actually probably having some positive health changes. He's probably happier, he's probably having more fun, because he gets that big screen TV and starts cooking rich meals. Friend number 3 is finding it hard to find the time to walk, right? So he's finding difficulty right now. Kind of like we were with this day number 5. We're starting to wonder, what the heck did I get myself into? And the same thing, and he wishes that he could eat more rich foods. Now, after 1 year, you're starting to see some actual noticeable differences. The friend number 1 is obviously staying the same. Friend number 2 is enjoying his TV and food, but he has gained just 5 pounds. So it almost seems like it's worth it at this point. It's kind of balancing it out. He's got a big screen TV and he's got some really rich food and he's gained about 5 pounds. So to him, it seems like this is worth it. Meanwhile, friend number 3 is really starting to enjoy his walks. Maybe his conversations are deepening with his wife and he's making these healthy choices and he's lost 5 pounds. So to him, it's starting to seem, hey, this might be worth it. This might be worth the struggle that I had in month number 1 in order to create this effect after 1 year. Now, after 3 years, you can guess what's going to happen. Friend number 1, again, is going to stay the same. Friend number 2 is now 30 pounds overweight and just isn't enjoying himself in general. And not only that, but he's watching TV too much. He's probably taken up some other unhealthy habits simply because he's not feeling all that great about himself. But friend number 3 has now lost 30 pounds that he didn't maybe even know that he needed to lose. And he has more energy than ever. He's got more energy at work and at home, and because of that, his home life is better. His relationship with his wife is much, much better, and maybe his relationship with his kids is better, and etc. And friend number 3 also is getting potentially promoted. He has more energy to give at work, and simply because of these 2 small changes, his whole life is slowly becoming much more successful and slowly becoming much more fulfilling. So you can see the compound effect at work in these 3 identical friends. It might not seem like it's making much of a difference, making some small healthy choices, seemingly insignificant ones, in month number 1. But by year number 3, there's a very significant difference. In fact, friend number 2 and friend number 3 are now 60 pounds different than they were when they first started. So let's talk about the effect in your life. Let's say you're maybe not identifying with any one of these friends. Where can you see the compound effect happening right now in your life? Let's look at your health habits. Let's look at your finances. Let's look at your career. Where is the compound effect happening in your life right now? And can you feel yourself slowly gaining confidence, success, finances through the smart, small actions and habits that you're taking based on maybe some of the things that you've either learned from this channel or from other different places? Or do you slowly feel yourself sliding, gaining weight, not progressing at work, not learning new things through those small, consistent habits? In other words, do you have empowering habits or do you have disempowering habits? Again, these are just small, almost imperceptible things that you're doing on a daily basis that could either get you to turn in the right direction or to get you to turn in the wrong direction. And now another guy that talks about 1% or the compound effect is James Clear when he talks about this in his book Atomic Habits. So I wanted to quickly illustrate this on a graph. So this is a graph if you get just 1% better every single day. You can see that 1% improvement in the short term doesn't look like very much. It almost is a flat line in the beginning. It's imperceptible because you're taking imperceptible actions or almost imperceptible actions. But you can see that slowly but surely this compound effect is going to give you some pretty amazing results. And exactly the opposite is happening in this 1% decline. You can see on the graph that in the beginning you're not seeing too much of a decline. You're seeing a little bit of decline and more steep curve in the beginning potentially than the improvement curve. But essentially what you're doing is you're basically going down to zero. And you can see 1% worse every day for a year. You end up being 0.03. That's essentially zero. Or if you get 1% better every day for a year, you get 37.78. That's almost 38 times better over the year. So very interesting how such a small, imperceptible actions can make a very big difference in our life if we are just able to commit to this amazing effect of the compounding effect, to this amazing journey that is the compound effect, is what I should say. So the next thing we're going to talk about is daily disciplines. And this is essentially, compounding is the process. And then this is the actions that we're going to need to take coming up next year, those 6 things that he talked about. By the end of the book, or even before, I want you to know in your bones that your only path to success is through a continuum of mundane, unsexy, unexciting, and sometimes difficult daily disciplines compounded over time. So again, these are the essentially the small, smart choices. It's the exact same thing. And then it's just done and compounded over time. He goes on to continue. He says, know too that the results, the life, and the lifestyle of your dreams can be yours when you put the compound effect to work for you. If you use the principles outlined in the compound effect, you will create your fairy tale ending. He continues, he says, but as Jim Rohn would say, what's simple to do is also simple not to do. And I love that. Jim Rohn always coming in with the great and witty quotes. What is simple to do is also simple not to do. And isn't that the truth? The magic is not in the complexity of the task. The magic is in the doing of simple things repeatedly and long enough to ignite the miracle of the compound effect. Again, the magic is not in the complexity of the task, right? It's not in creating this amazing plan for yourself. It's not in creating this amazing diet or workout regimen and etc. The magic is in the doing of the simple things. It's going for walks. It's eating a little bit less at dinner repetitively and long enough to ignite the miracle of the compound effect. And I wish I had known about the compound effect earlier in my life when I would create these ridiculous workout plans and these ridiculous diets for myself, and they would work. In fact, I was a personal trainer in a previous life and I was in very good shape and very strong and etc. But what I realized was that some of the plans and some of the diets that I had myself on simply were not going to be effective over the long term because of the amount of willpower that it took to keep them up. And now instead I choose to do small, seemingly insignificant tasks in order to maintain my health. Similar actually to friend number 3. I like to go for walks after dinner and eat just that little bit less at dinner time, and that seems to be keeping me in fairly good shape. So let's talk a little bit about the fairy tale ending. He says that if you use these principles outlined in the compound effect, you will create your fairy tale ending. And I like that. I like to think of it as a vision, actually. I don't like to think of it as fairy tale ending. I like to think of it as vision. So everyone has their own fairy tale ending. In my self-coaching course, I call this their vision, or some people would say goals, and etc. Something like a vision is a great word for it, I think. But as Darren says in this quote, having a vision is not enough, because realization of that vision comes from doing a lot of mundane, unsexy, unexciting, and sometimes difficult daily disciplines. Absolutely. So this is the same exact thing that we're going over in my self-coaching course that I'm building right now. Is we need to write out our vision. We need to allow ourselves to see the things that we might be able to accomplish with our lives should we adopt responsibility for them. But what we need to be careful of is not to continuously fantasize about this vision, because fantasizing about the vision is not grounded in action. And in order to actually accomplish things, we need to be grounded in action. And as Darren says here, it's action of the mundane, unsexy, unexciting, and sometimes difficult daily disciplines. And that's exactly what I do in the self-coaching course. I teach you exactly how to connect your vision directly to your capabilities, to your values and your beliefs, and directly to your behaviors or your habits. And that's exactly what we do inside the self-coaching course. There will be a link down below if you're interested in that, but I'll continue on with the compound effect by Darren Hardy. He's not just talking about doing things once. This is a forever type thing, and that's how compounding really works. So more about the how of the daily disciplines are coming up in the next points, but to keep in mind that the daily disciplines are, again, those mundane, unsexy, unexciting things that you do on an everyday basis. And those are the things that we need to commit to doing in order to get the compound effect to take place, in order for it to really compound our results and allow us to achieve our vision. So the next part we're going to talk about is tracking. And I really believe in this, that anytime you're trying to create a new habit, anytime you're trying to create any kind of change in your life, that tracking is huge. It's very, very important to track your progress and to track what you're doing. So the quote in the book goes, right this moment, pick an area in your life where you most want to be successful. Do you want more money in the bank? Do you want a trimmer waistline, the strength to compete in an Ironman event? Maybe a better relationship with your spouse or your kids? So I would invite you to do that right now. What do you want in your life? Pick an area in your life where you want to be more successful. I would say do that right now, and that will definitely help you throughout the rest of this mind map. The quote continues. He says, picture where you are in that area right now, right? So you have to start with point A. Where are you coming from? Now picture where you want to be. Richer, thinner, happier, you name it. The first step towards change is awareness. Exactly. Awareness of your vision and the ability to let yourself actually have a vision, which so many people are afraid of, actually creating a vision for themselves. If you want to get from where you are to where you want to be, you have to start becoming aware of the choices that lead you away from the desired destination. Become very conscious of your every choice you make today, so you can begin to make smarter choices moving forward. And that comes to the tracking. The only way that you can do it is to track every action that relates to the area in your life that you want to improve. And I would say track every action, but also let's identify the few key actions, the few key things that you can do in any one of the certain areas that you want to become successful in, rather than having to track everything. I think especially now with so many different ways to track a million different things, whether it's your steps, whether it's your calorie intake, whether it's your exercise, and etc. Pick a few of the key things that you can actually focus on to track, and focus on improving those key metrics rather than trying to improve everything all at once. And also, I think it needs to be said potentially right here that the metric that you should be tracking is not necessarily your weight, it's not necessarily your money in your bank account, but the things that you should be doing in order to improve that thing that you wish to be successful in, if that makes sense, right? So maybe you do want to track your steps, or maybe you do want to track your monthly spending, and those are the numbers that you pay attention to. You don't want to pay too much attention to that end goal of what you want to be successful in, because what ends up happening, at least to me and many of the other people that I coach as well, is when you focus on your goal or focus on your vision too intently and focus on fantasizing about that vision, you inevitably come to this point where you start to think about how far away this vision really is from you. And instead of focusing on that, you want to focus on the actions that you can take in the moment. That's much more important. So again, awareness, tracking, awareness, both the same thing, but I would say tracking is the action that is awareness. So everything starts with knowing where you are, just like programming a GPS. And the best way to become aware is to start tracking. So again, for example, do you want to lose some weight? You could start tracking your weight. You need a starting point for sure. But then after that, you could start tracking your food, start tracking your intake or your steps, and etc. Watch your lead metrics, which would be your food and your intake, instead of watching your lagging metric, which would be your weight, if that makes sense. And the same thing with the money, right? You can start tracking your income, start tracking your time, and start tracking your RGAs, which is revenue generating activities if you're in business. And then you can track and see, those are your lead metrics to your lag metric to making more money. Now, we're going to talk about behaviors being compounded in the next part, but I just wanted to quickly go over tracking once again. The number one most important thing about tracking is awareness. And then when you start tracking, you got to make sure that you're tracking, again, your lead metrics, the things that you can control in the now, rather than focusing on the lag metrics or the thing that will change based on your lead metrics. Even if the lag metric is what you want to change, even if you want to change your weight, you have to be really careful to make sure that you're tracking your lead metrics, the things that actually are going to dictate what your weight is. So now we'll move on to behaviors compounded. The quote from this section, this idea here is, all right, let's map out your process for achieving the goals you've decided upon. So after this, we've already decided, okay, what is my goal? What do I want to accomplish? What do I want to be successful in? This is the doing process. I like that. This is the doing process. Or in some cases, the stop doing process. Exactly the same as in Atomic Habits. You can either create a new habit or you can stop doing a bad habit, both of which might lead towards the ultimate success that you're looking for. Very interesting. The quote continues and says, what stands between you and your goal is your behavior. Tony Robbins talks a lot about this as well. Do you need to stop doing anything so the compound effect isn't taking you in a downward spiral? So that's the first thing to look at, right? Because if you're going in a downward spiral, as we looked at, as we saw in the graph here, this James Clear graph, if you're going down, even if you start to implement something that's going to give you a 1% improvement, that's only going to keep you exactly at zero. So the first most important thing is to make sure that you're not in decline. Make sure that you're not doing anything that is making your success decline in the area that you want to be successful in. He continues and says, similarly, what do you need to start doing in order to change your trajectory so that it's headed in the most beneficial direction? In other words, what habits or behaviors do you need to subtract from your life and add to your life? I like that. Subtract first and then add afterwards. Make sure that you're not adding on top of things that are already subtracting, because that's only going to keep you at zero. Your life comes all down to this formula. Again, another formula. I like this. The choice that you make, the behavior plus the habit plus compounding or compounded equals your goals. So your decisions plus your actions repeated over time equals your goals. And that's why it's imperative to figure out which behaviors are blocking the path that leads to your goals. Very, very important. So you got to make sure that you are not leading yourself into this negative downward spiral. You have to subtract those habits first, are blocking the path that leads to your goal, and which behaviors help you accomplish it. So you got to subtract the ones that are leading you down that negative path and add new ones that are leading you towards a good path. So we're talking about the same exact formula here, and essentially what we're going to do is we're going to take this equation and ask yourself these questions. What behaviors are getting in the way of my goals? What behaviors are getting in the way of your goals? Because this is exactly what we're going to change. We're going to change the behavior, create it and make it a habit, and then wait, essentially, and then stay consistent, essentially. So let's get those habits out of the way, and then let's find you a habit that's going to make positive change. And again, we're talking about James Clear, Atomic Habits. If you need a way to make and break habits, this is the perfect book for you. This is the guidebook for creating positive habits and breaking negative habits. So this book and mind map will show you the best ways to build habits to make sure that they stick. And I will leave a link to that mind map that I did on that book down below for you if you want to check it out. Next, we're going to talk about momentum. And momentum is very, very important, because you might be thinking these small daily actions actually start to add up. Because if you're trying to make success a priority in multiple different areas of your life, you're going to have to start adopting a bunch of new habits. But momentum is kind of the saving grace here. And what Darren says about it, he says the same things happen when a rocket ship launches. The space shuttle uses more fuel during the first few minutes of its flight than it does for the rest of the entire trip. And this is exactly the truth when it happens with habits, when it happens with all of this compounding effect here as well. The first few days, the first month is going to be much harder than the first year is. And then obviously after you've done it for an entire year, it's going to be much, much easier to continue that habit. Now he goes on, he says, why? Because it has to break free from the pull of gravity. Once it does, it can glide into orbit. The hard part, getting off the ground. Continuing on, he says, your old ways and your old conditioning are just like the inertia of the merry-go-round or the pull of gravity. Everything wants to stay at rest. So you're comfortable, even if you're in the downward spiral of the habits, of the 1% unimprovement, essentially. You still want to stay in that trajectory, but changing your trajectory is going to be very hard because of the pull of gravity working on you. You'll need a lot of energy to break your inertia and get your new enterprise underway. Whatever your enterprise would be, whatever success you're looking for, whatever habits you're trying to create, or whatever behaviors you're trying to cultivate, essentially. But once you get the momentum, you will be hard to stop, virtually unbeatable, even though you are now putting out considerably less effort while receiving greater results. Exactly. It's very interesting the way that the compound effect works. We're looking at this graph and you might think, oh, up here is going to be the most difficult part because we're making such rapid progress. But what actually is the hardest part is this small line. It's making this change is very, very difficult. And not only that, but you're not getting very much reward for making that very difficult change. And you need to break out of this part of the flight of the rocket ship, so to speak, and get into this part where it's much, much easier and you're just in orbit and you don't have to use nearly as much power. So I want to talk a little bit about Newton, because essentially we're talking about physics here while we're talking about the spaceship. The first law, Newton's first law, says that objects at rest tend to stay at rest, and an object in motion tends to stay in motion unless it's acted upon. And this is really true with people. The old axiom, if you want something done, give it to the busiest guy in the office, generally holds true, because that guy is moving and he's way more likely to just pick up your thing and get it done very quickly rather than someone who hasn't moved in quite some time. So we'll talk a little bit about momentum and you. So how will you build momentum, or how do you build momentum? First, you have to start. That's the most important part. We talked about that quite a bit before, but first you have to get started. You have to know what your goal is, what you want to succeed at, and what the action towards that is going to be. Then you can get into the zone by doing the things that we've already talked about. Make those new choices based on your vision, and then put these behaviors to work through put these choices to work through positive behaviors. So you got to make a new choice, right? If you want success in, again, for example, with your weight, you have to make the choice to want to lose weight. And then you got to put this choice to work by creating positive behaviors. And then by repeating those behaviors long term, you'll turn them into habits. So you can see that the process is basically 1, 2, 3. You make a choice. I want to be successful in X. And then you have to think, okay, what positive behaviors will get me more successful in whatever I want to achieve? Do those behaviors and then repeat those behaviors long term, turning them into a habit and getting out of the atmosphere and making it easy and building up momentum. So think about where you're going to start. Where is your specific thing that you want to achieve? And we talked about that in the tracking. You need to pick an area in your life where you want to be successful. If you haven't already done that, I suggest you do it. And then we can get onto the path of building momentum. Now, he has another tactic, I would say. This is definitely a tactic of bookending your days. And actually, very interestingly, James Clear talks about this same exact thing in his book on habits. He calls it putting habits in at checkpoints or pause points. And for example, actually, it's talked about in the checklist manifesto of putting in checklists at pause points. And that's essentially what this is. So the key to becoming world-class in your endeavors is to build your performance around world-class routines. It can be difficult, even futile, to control or predict what will show up in the middle of your workday. And put your hand up if you think that's true. But you can always control how your day starts and how your day ends. I have routines for both. This is absolutely true for me. Sometimes the middle of my day just gets so hectic, but if I can get my first 2 hours of my day in before anyone else is awake and they potentially have control over my schedule, then I will get a lot of work done in that first 2 hours. And the same thing at the end of the day. I have to make sure that I get to sleep so that I have enough energy to wake up and be vibrant and ready to create these amazing mind maps for you guys. He continues on. Actually, I'm going to talk about Tim Ferriss here. I didn't even realize. We're talking about these daily rituals. If you listen to his podcast, which I've listened to quite a few, he quite often asks guests what their daily rituals are. And this happened much more so when he was just first starting interviewing. He was a little bit more robotic with his question asking. But I found this absolutely fascinating to see what these really top performers are doing in the evening and in the morning and etc. Darren talks about how you can really only control your morning and your evening. The chaos of the middle of the day is often unmanageable. And again, I really believe this to be true. It happens to me, and I'm completely self-employed. I don't even have anyone who really can tell me what to do. But if you prepare yourself for it with morning and evening rituals, you will be in the best place possible for it. And I think that a lot of these behaviors that we're looking to compound, a lot of the choices that we're looking to make in order to build momentum can revolve around this evening ritual and this morning ritual. The more things that you can include that are leading to the success that you want in whatever area you want in this evening and morning ritual, the better, because these are the small things and this is the only time that you can actually control them. Quite often you'll say, okay, I'm going to work out at 3 p.m. today or 4 p.m. after work. And how often do you end up skipping the gym because of the chaos of the middle of the day and it being completely unmanageable? Happens quite often. But it wouldn't happen so much if you worked out specifically first thing in the morning. So I think personally that you should start off with the evening one. And the reason you should start it because it really does drive your morning ritual. If you don't have a good nighttime ritual, your morning one will never stick because you're too tired to actually do it. So let's build yours. What is your evening ritual? That's a simple question. What time do you expect to go to bed? What do you do before that time that you are going to bed? And how do you wind down so that you can get a full restful sleep? And to share mine with you, I'll share mine really quickly. After dinner, I go for a walk with my girlfriend. I try and let go of the stress of the day, and that walk helps me digest the dinner that I've just had, and I'm trying to eat just a little bit less than I normally would at dinner time. Very, very simple habit. After that, I'll do a little bit of stretching or some sort of other workout, which would be a yoga or something like that with her, something not weightlifting related, I would say, because weightlifting will keep me up all night. But I'll try and get into a dark room. So actually with the yoga, we'll put it on the laptop. We'll dim the lights. We'll just have the one light on. Try and do a little bit of yoga. I'll either read or just talk to my girlfriend after that. And then we'll take magnesium, a little bit of CBD, and head to bed and off to a great night's sleep. And this has been a perfect nighttime ritual for me. Now, morning rituals. We'll talk about morning rituals. I suggest that you build your evening routine or ritual first. But we'll talk about morning rituals next. Morning rituals can really superpower your day. I totally believe that. They are extremely important for energizing you and keeping you on track. So, for example, let's say your morning ritual is to scroll through social media or to check your email. Immediately, you're starting to take orders, you're starting to take programming from someone outside of yourself. And to me, that just doesn't make any sense because I know what I want to accomplish in the day. And my job is really to be free from distraction as much as possible in order to create works similar to this one that I'm providing for you guys right now. So we'll talk about your morning ritual. What is your morning ritual? What time do you expect to wake up? What do you do upon waking? And how do you prepare yourself for the day ahead? And this is going to be different for everyone. It's going to be based on your job. It's going to be based on your tendencies. It's going to be based on your preferences. But you need to create one for yourself. So I'll share my morning ritual with you, but essentially I wake up between 5 a.m. and 6 a.m. I don't set an alarm because I go to bed nice and early to make sure that I'm able to wake up at 5 or 6 a.m. Setting an alarm, I end up getting in this cycle of chronic not having enough sleep because I'll go to bed too late and then I won't wake up early enough. But this way, if I don't set an alarm, I know I need to be up by 6 a.m. so I have to go to bed by either 8:30 or 9 to make sure that my body naturally wakes up at this time. Immediately, I try and drink a big giant jug of water and meditate loosely because it's not an actual formal meditation. It's just me watching my thoughts for 20 or 40 minutes. And this is essentially based on how noisy my brain is that morning, essentially. So if it's not very noisy, I might only meditate for 20 minutes. But if I can see my brain is very noisy and that might affect my day, I'll go for a full 40 minutes. Directly after that, I'll jump in the shower. Actually, I missed that part, but I'll jump in the shower, brush my teeth, and etc. Even before this meditation. And then after that, I'll do a small stretching workout, just something small. I do a little stretch that I have on my desk. I do a little bit of foam rolling just for my back and etc. Just kind of run through the same stretches that I always do that make me feel good for the rest of the day. And then first things first, it's deep work, directly into deep work. I usually do mind mapping as my first thing. I'll read the book and mind map, until I get onto a task that doesn't involve deep work by around noon. Usually I try and stay until at least noon of continuous deep work. I try and get anywhere from 4 to 6 hours in a day. And then unfortunately I do have a few things throughout my day that require non-deep work, that require some shallow work, and I'll try and do those sometime in the afternoon. Now, that's the evening and nighttime ritual. Again, you can see that inside of my evening and nighttime ritual, a lot of stuff is going on that is behaviors compounded, right? So getting to bed nice and early allows me to be able to be more successful in my day because I have so much more energy. And because I get to bed nice and early, I have more energy to chase after financial means. I have more energy to chase after, for example, creating more mind maps, creating more great works, which is something that I definitely want to be successful in. And a bunch of other things are being founded by that one small habit. And again, same thing with the stretching and other workouts. This allows me to move more often throughout my day. I'm not just sitting at my desk all day long. And then talking with my girlfriend, that's deepening a relationship that's going to continue on for the rest of our lives. That taking magnesium and heading to bed allows me to get a better night's sleep. But you can see how that one behavior, that small, seemingly insignificant behavior at this point in time just feels good to me because it's a habit, is leading me towards that 1% improvement in the compound effect. So I would, again, look at bookending your day. Very, very important. If you're going to start doing a daily discipline, you're going to start trying to be successful in some way, shape, or form, try and add those things that you need to do to either an evening ritual or a morning ritual. Something I'm looking at in my morning ritual is how can I find time specifically to be able to do a more intense workout. Currently, right now, I just kind of do it whenever it fits into my schedule, but I know that's not long-term effective. I would be looking at doing something first thing in the morning for a more intense workout. Perhaps at a different point in my life, that will be higher up on my list, but currently right now, that deep work is the most important thing for me in my day other than my relationship. Now, we're going to move on to the last point, and this is really the perfect bookend to the book, I think. The next 5 years. And it really shows you how you should be thinking about your life. It's not so much, I think James Clear says in his books Atomic Habits, not so much where you are right now. It's more about your trajectory. That's what you should be focusing on. And 5 years is your trajectory. So in the book, Darren says, no matter where you are or what year it is, when you find this book, if I could, I would ask you these simple questions. Look back on your life 5 years ago. Are you now where you thought you'd be 5 years later? Have you kicked the bad habits you had vowed to kick? Are you in the shape that you wanted to be? Do you have the cushy income, the enviable lifestyle, and the personal freedom that you expected? Do you have the vibrant health, the abundant and loving relationships, and the world-class skills you'd intended to have by this point in your life? If not, why? Some great questions that we'll dive a little bit deeper into in a moment here. Simple, he says. If not, why? Simple. The simple reason you don't is because of your choices. It's time to make a new choice. Choose to not let the next 5 years be a continuum of the last. Choose to change your life once and for all. Let's make the next 5 years of your life fantastically different from the last 5. And there's quite a lot in this one quote here. Choose to not let the next 5 years be a continuum of the last. And again, if you look and you are on that downward spiral that we talked about before, if you're on that downward spiral, you might be here. You're essentially getting to zero. You're getting further and further and further away from where you want to be. And the further and further you let it go, the harder and harder it will be to come back to where you actually want to be. So very important to change your trajectory from this point forward. That's essentially what we're going to talk about in the questions. So we'll talk about this here. Are you now where you thought you'd be 5 years ago? This is an interesting exercise. You can look back and see what did you want and why did you not achieve it, or why did you achieve it, or why did you get way more than you thought. Now, if you're anything like me, I mean, everyone, we have some things that we did accomplish, some things that we didn't accomplish. It's not about what we did or didn't. It's about the system that got us to where we are. We need to audit that system. Have you kicked your bad habits? Are you in the shape that you wanted to be? Do you have the income you wanted? Are you world class in your skills, as Brian Tracy talks about? Why not? Why aren't you? Very interesting. Think about those questions and don't look at them as a negative thing for you to remedy. Look at them as, oh, my system led me to a place that was not empowering for me, that didn't lead me to where I wanted to be 5 years ago. So just as an ending quote here, I wanted to say, almost all of us have had a vision for our lives for the past 5 years. And some of the things you were able to accomplish, but a few of them you weren't able to accomplish. And maybe it's more things you weren't able to accomplish than you were able to accomplish, or vice versa. I just wanted to say that if you're here watching this video, you're definitely on the 1% upwards track, and likely many things that you could never have envisioned are going to happen, and potentially many things that you had never envisioned have happened over the last 5 years. And that's what I want to really stamp home here. That's why I believe it's so important to see the vision as a moving target. We talked about vision in the very beginning. I think vision is more and more a better word for it than goals, because goals imply a set end. Because I think that most people will set goals just to accomplish them, and that's not where we want to be. We want to be in a vision that's a constantly moving target. But really, a vision is just a way to aim yourself towards something greater than you are today, which is something that all humans crave. Now, again, same thing. When you're setting goals or setting a vision or setting an intention for yourself, it's much more a way to aim yourself towards something greater than you are today, a way of creating yourself in a better image 5 years from now, if we're looking at the next 5 years of your life. So more important than your vision is really who you become along the way. That's why I often say, set the vision and then kind of forget about it. Focus on the small mundane things and who you're becoming along the way, because that really is the most important at the end of the day. Now, again, this is The Compound Effect by Darren Hardy, a very, very good book. I definitely recommend you go and pick it up. There will be some links down in the description down below to Atomic Habits and some of the other books that I referenced here. And there's also a link down to my self-coaching course down below. If you're interested, I would definitely like to see you inside that self-coaching course. We'll talk to you again next time.